Good morning to you. Welcome to my thought for the day. It's Palm Sunday, the beginning of the last week of the life of Jesus. And can I suggest to you, as part of the sort of Holy Week pilgrimage, as it were, if you take the Palm Sunday reading, which is found in all four Gospels, in Matthew 21, 1 to 11, Mark 11, 1 to 11, Luke 19, 29 to 44, and John 12, 12 to 19. Choose a gospel and start today and read from where the triumphal entry is recorded in whichever gospel you choose, and read some of the rest of the gospel over the next 5 days, 6, 7 days, so that we journey with Jesus in his final week and culminate on Friday reading the account that's in the gospel that you've chosen to read, the account of his betrayal on the Thursday night and his death on the Friday. You get a little bit of a rest on the Saturday. There's nothing much written, and maybe only a few words written about the Sabbath of the last week of the earthly life of Jesus. And then on Easter Sunday, read the resurrection story that's in the gospel that you're reading. Of all of them, I think Mark is the one I wouldn't read because his is the shortest account. But there we are. We are on Palm Sunday, and you know the story of Palm Sunday. Jesus, having avoided Jerusalem for some while because things were very hot in Jerusalem, he was under threat of arrest for quite some time before he comes into Jerusalem. And he comes into Jerusalem, and he approaches Jerusalem knowing that he is entering the last week of his life. He has foretold his death several times to his disciples, and they haven't really taken it in. But he's still healing as he comes in. He's still teaching, and he's still healing, and he comes to Jerusalem. And I'm going to read a little bit from the account. Actually, it might be good just to read the whole account in Matthew 21. And when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find an ass tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord has need of them,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on an ass, on a colt, the foal of an ass." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the ass and the colt and put their garments on them, and he sat thereon. Most of the crowd spread their garments on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then the crowds that went before him and that followed him shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." And when he entered Jerusalem, all the city was stirred, saying, "Who is this?" And the crowd said, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee." I want to focus really, for my thought for the day today, on the donkey. Donkeys are amazing creatures, aren't they? And they do appear at the beginning and at the end of the life of Jesus. There's no account of Mary riding a donkey to Bethlehem, but it's more than probable that she did. She may have sat on a cart pulled by a donkey. She certainly wouldn't have walked all that way at 9 months pregnant. She wouldn't have done it. But she was carried by a donkey. There was a donkey there, and there was a donkey here towards the end of the life of Jesus. And the donkey was very important. This was a beast of burden. This was a humble animal. And everything that Jesus chose to use and make use of in his life was humble. He made use of a stable when he was born. He was not born in a palace with riches. He was born and nursed in a stable with the animals. He was lowly, humble, and yet he was the king, the greatest king, the king of all kings. And here he is, and he's coming into his capital city. He is the descendant, the direct descendant of David, traced through both parents, his adoptive father and his mother. He is a direct descendant of David. And Jerusalem is David's city. Why is it called the city of David? Because when the tribes under Joshua conquered the land of Canaan, they didn't conquer Jerusalem until David. The capital was in Hebron and also in Shiloh, important places in the Old Testament. Before Jerusalem became the capital, it was David who conquered Jerusalem and made it the capital. It was David's city, the city of David. It's always been known as the city of David. And here was David's direct descendant coming as king into his capital. And it's no wonder that everybody who followed him and listened to him thought he was going to overthrow the Romans and he was going to set up his kingdom with Jerusalem as his capital. And so it was not unexpected that the king would ride into his capital. But wouldn't a king ride on a magnificent war horse, a beautiful white war horse, magnificent? No, Jesus was not that kind of king. Jesus has never been that kind of king. He's not the kind of king who forces his will on anybody. He's the kind of king who wins people by loving them, not by threatening them. And Jesus sends his disciples to find the donkey for him to ride. And in fact, he rides on the colt, the foal of an ass, a donkey's young colt, an unridden young animal. And Jesus rides him. So he'd never have been head and shoulders above the crowd because a donkey wasn't that tall. Donkeys are not very easy to ride. If you've ever seen pictures of people riding donkeys, they're not very high. They're not very tall. This was not a magnificent figure coming in great glory with magnificent robes and with a wonderful saddle on the horse that he's riding, on his steed, with his knights behind it. You know, whatever you think of as how a king should look, Jesus didn't look like that at all. He did not look like that at all. He didn't even have a saddle, and the people put their garments on the back of the donkey for him to ride. He was not that kind of king. And he was fulfilling several Old Testament prophecies. One of them is in Psalm 68, which says, "Thou didst ascend the high mount, leading captives in thy train, and receiving gifts among men." And this is, I think, a prophetic act that Jesus is riding in triumph into the city. And when the great men, great warriors, rode into the city, they would have behind them, following behind them, all the people that they defeated and all the riches of the place that they defeated. And Jesus, it says in Ephesians 4, verse 7, says, verse 8, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives, or in the old version it was, he led captivity captive, and he gave gifts to men. He was prophetically enacting what was going to be true when the cross was completed and the resurrection, that the enemy was defeated and the king was entering his kingdom in triumph. But this was foretelling it on the back of a donkey. This is the king we serve, not a law enforcer with the power of his ability or the power of his army, but he is the king who wins hearts by loving them and serving them. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. God bless you as you celebrate Palm Sunday today. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.